Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to this episode of 5 Easy Tips. Now, one of the biggest questions I see asked every year by anyone picking up Call of Duty, or any FPS game for that matter, is how do I go about getting better aim so that I can land all my shots, pick up loads of kills, and just genuinely do better at Call of Duty. And what's also awesome is that the things that you learn in this video, you'll be able to carry over to any other Call of Duty or first-person shooter that you'll ever play. There'll also be a little something for everyone in this video, whether you're someone who plays Call of Duty a lot or just starting out. And if you have any other tips, do please share them in the comments below. I'll also be giving you an awesome drill that you should try and do as often as you can, which will definitely help you get better aim pretty damn quickly. First up, we've got one of the most basic tips, but will make a big difference in improving your aim, as well as allowing you to do a couple different things depending on what you want to achieve, and that's choosing the best sensitivity. Now, there's a couple of things to keep in mind with sensitivity. The higher the sensitivity, the more reactive you can be, such as being able to turn on an enemy shooting you from behind, or having the ability to quickly snap onto an opponent on the far side of your screen, and it's something I personally would recommend using if you're sniping. On the other hand, the lower sensitivity you have, the more overall control you have of your aim. You're not going to be able to be as reactive as a high sensitivity, so if you're getting shot from behind, if they're a good shot, they have a fairly decent chance of taking you out. However, with a lower sensitivity, you're going to have far better accuracy, especially at long range, and there's a reason 99% of the pro players tend to use a lower sensitivity, because of having that greater sense of control. And with Call of Duty being a 3-lane system game, you shouldn't be having to be that reactive all the time, so having that extra control is a huge advantage. Another thing to think about is if you end up using a really high sensitivity, it's so much more difficult to make small adjustments, and if you move your thumbstick just that little bit too much, your crosshairs are going to be flying all over the screen. So what you'll want to do to get better aim is to have a lower sensitivity. I personally play on a 4 horizontal and vertical when I'm playing with an assault rifle or SMG, and then a 6 horizontal and 4 vertical when I'm sniping. Though remember, this is all personal preference, but I would recommend starting on a low sensitivity and slowly work your way up until you find the perfect one for you. Next up, we have something that I know could quite possibly make the biggest improvement to so many players and help them get more kills and hit their opponents straight away, and yet for some reason they just don't do it, or even think about doing it, which is pretty crazy if you ask me. And it's the first thing that when I watch other people playing, I'm going, oh god, why is he not doing it? He should be doing it. And that is something called centering. Now, I know a lot of you just went, huh? What the hell are you on about? And that's because it's something that I didn't even think about until I started playing competitively in Call of Duty Ghosts, and it made the biggest difference to me personally, as it was reducing the amount of time that I had to react, and was also helping me take out my opponents faster, and it made me be already doing one of the most difficult things about aiming in Call of Duty before an opponent was even there, and that's lining up your target. So centering will take a bit of practice, but effectively what it is making sure that your crosshairs are always pointing towards the most dangerous entry point in the area of the map you're in. That might be a window a lot of people use to snipe, or a doorway people run through a lot. The more you actively think about it, the better choices you'll make with centering your crosshairs, taking into account where your teammates are on the minimap, or where you just heard gunshots from, or knowing that the enemy are spawning nearby and are definitely going to come rushing through that doorway. But it means all you're ever going to need to do to take someone out and land your shots is instantly pull the left and right trigger at the same time without having to react and drag your crosshairs onto the enemy. Trust me, start doing this and you'll notice a huge difference. The next tip that I've got for you is something that you're definitely going to be wanting to start doing whenever you come across an opponent at medium to long range, because that tends to be the range when people start missing their shots and their aim becomes something that you can only really describe as a windmill caught up in a hurricane, and that's burst firing. I know it sounds so simple, but trust me, with the accuracy drill that I've got coming up for you in the video, you'll get burst firing absolutely nailed down, which is going to help you become the best Infinite Warfare player you can possibly be. Whenever you get into a medium to long range gunfight using an assault rifle, SMG, or LMG, just fire a few rounds, land your shots, have a small pause to get your recoil back under control, and fire again. I'm not talking about a huge pause where you could have time to have a sip of your cup of tea, but a slight pause between tapping your trigger. Do this consistently and you'll notice a huge difference over the course of a game. Don't just spray and pray, burst fire. My fourth tip is all about your class setup. It is without a doubt one of the biggest choices that you'll have to make before hopping into a game, which will have a huge effect on your overall accuracy. Because if you're using a high-powered assault rifle like the Volk, for example, if you've got a class setup that doesn't help counter the recoil, there is no chance you're going to be able to land all your shots on your opponents at medium to long range especially. There's a couple of things that you can do to counter this when making your class. Firstly, you can make sure that you're running the grip attachment. This is going to reduce the recoil of your gun so that it doesn't kick about as much, and then you have a brand new option that Infinite Warfare has brought into the game, which is if you want to be extremely accurate, make sure you're using weapon variants with weapon perks like focus, which is going to reduce your sight sway while aiming down sights, which is just going to make you even more accurate. I would also recommend using weapons like the NV4, which just naturally doesn't have much recoil, and work towards unlocking the NV4 Flatline, which is the epic variant, which will be one of the best automatic assault rifles in the game for being accurate and taking out enemies from medium to long range. But if you're wondering about a class that you should use, I would definitely recommend trying out this one. First of all, you're going to want to choose an accurate weapon. I would recommend using the NV4 assault rifle, one of the most accurate weapons in Infinite Warfare, or the R3K if you like burst assault rifles. I was very lucky to get the legendary NV4 in my very first supply drop, which is a Prosperity one, which is actually exclusive to supply drops. You can't get it with salvage, so I'm going to use that. Sadly, it doesn't have any weapon perks that help improve accuracy, but at the moment, it's all I've got, so I'm going to be using it. If you've got one with better accuracy perks, go ahead and use that. I would then recommend using a reflex sight, just because when you're starting out, don't use iron sights until you got really used to the weapon. So throw on a reflex sight, then you're going to have foregrip, which is going to help improve accuracy, which you can see at the bottom of the screen as well. It adds it by 10, which is incredibly useful. Then I always throw quick draw and stock on assault rifles, just because I think they're kind of staple attachments that you should always have on an assault rifle. Then for perks, the first two perks don't really matter, so I'm just going to go Recon and then Scavenger so I don't run out of ammo. Then perk 3, I use Marksman. Now, what's the great thing about Marksman is it gives you a little bit of flinch control. So if you get shot in a gunfight, it doesn't do very much, but it gives you a little bit. And out of all the perks, I personally think for assault rifles, unless you're using Dead Silence, Marksman's the best one to use. So use Marksman and then just have a little sidearm. I quite like the Hailstorm, so I go ahead and use that. But that's an awesome class that you should use if you're trying to be accurate. Go ahead and try it out. And now it is finally time for my accuracy drill. This is something that I've been doing in every Call of Duty for years. It was something that I did just before going into a competitive match at tournaments, because it doesn't matter how good a player you are. You can always get better, and this drill doesn't only help you get better aim, but it also warms you up before you start playing, and you'll honestly be surprised by how big of a difference it actually makes when you start playing against real players in a competitive environment, and will help an absolute ton if you're going to try and get your high score streaks or earn that de-atomizer strike. First up, let's go through how to set up the drill. So what you're going to want to do for this drill is go into game rules, and the first options that you're going to have is a time limit and score limit. I personally recommend just putting this to unlimited on both, unless you have like a specific time that you want to do it, like 5 to 10 minutes, and then you'll just kind of practice for that long before hopping into a game. Then in advance, you don't need to change anything. Player, there's a couple options you can do here. I personally, when I'm starting out, I do double health, so all the enemies have twice as much health, which means you need to land twice as many bullets to kill them. And because we're working on accuracy, it doesn't matter about how many kills we're racking up. This is perfect. And then also whack up health regeneration to fast, so you can keep engaging gunfights, because once again, this isn't a competitive match. You're just going to want to be working on improving your aim. Then when you go to team, you're going to want to turn radar always on. This means that you can see where all the enemies are, so you can get into gunfights. You can work on centering. It works perfectly. Don't worry about anything else. And then in gameplay, you don't need to change anything. That's everything that you need to have the perfect drill. Now, back in Call of Duty Ghosts, I actually always used to do this drill on Strike Zone, which has actually been remade in Infinite Warfare with the map Genesis. So I would recommend doing it on this map, as it's small, has various lines of sight, and perfect for having lots of enemies nearby to get you into that perfect rhythm, which will help improve your aim. Now, what you're going to want to do using the settings I showed you is hop into the game with any SMG or assault rifle that you would like to use. I would recommend personally using the NV4 or the ERAD, as there's some of the first guns that you'll have access to on multiplayer. Then just start practicing everything that you've learned in this video. Burst fire, take your time, center your crosshairs on the dangerous locations, and you'll know where the enemies are coming from as your minimap radar is always on, so you can just focus on landing your shots. Don't worry too much about racking up loads of kills, just completely focus on landing your first couple of shots and snapping onto your opponents. Once you're feeling confident that you're hitting your targets consistently, I'd recommend trying to give yourself a couple of in-game challenges, like getting 5 kills with your NV4 without reloading, which means you have to be incredibly accurate and not waste any bullets. But honestly, this drill is just about practice, 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 until it just becomes sort of second nature, seeing enemies, snapping onto them, burst firing, winning those gunfights, and when you hop into an online match, you'll be shocked at how much better you perform. Another thing that you can do as you start to do the drill more and more, if you start finding it a little bit easy, you can always up the difficulty of the bots and make it a bit more of a challenge. But there we have it, 5 easy ways to improve your aim in Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel, drop a thumbs up if you found it useful, and let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys next time.